Words mean nothing. Actions mean everything. Watch this. Watch it very closely. Ask a lot of questions. Focus those cameras on everything that's going on, because this president is trying to lead us into what could be called a civil war.
Yes, Congresswoman Maxine Waters with the Civil War talk, political genius that she is. Kind of like Stacey Abrams, isn't she? Like another, they got these political geniuses all over the place. Maxine Waters, who has called for uncivil behavior in the past, calling on people to assault Republicans in gas stations and wherever you may find them. Civil war, and no sense of irony. She was in Los Angeles. You heard the sirens behind her, responding to another Democrat-induced emergency. Yes, the Democrat Party. Should the Democrat Party be disbanded? Shouldn't they? They should go the way of the Whigs, and the Bull Moose Party should be relegated to the ash heap of history. We'll set them up in a tent city, maybe down by the State Department in Washington, D.C., where they can live out their days and eventually be scraped up off the sidewalk like all the homeless people of Washington. Because that's agreement. That's the agreement that we've reached in Washington. We'll put them out on the street, mentally ill, drug addicted, until they die, and then we'll pick up their bodies and cremate them and scatter them in ashtrays in bars in Adams Morgan or something like that. Well, a very happy Wednesday and hump day. It's hump day. Very happy Wednesday to you, and it's mailbag day. It's hump day at the Clinton household. It's mailbag day here at the Chris Plante Show. You know, it's different. We're not the Clinton family. That's for sure. Yes, sir. Also, crazy stories. The Department of Defense, the Pentagon, the U.S. military, making preparations for large-scale resistance. Large-scale resistance. Isn't that amazing? Because the Democrats, you know, the party of the first Civil War in America, Jefferson Davis was the Democrat president. And now the Fox News Channel reporting today that the Pentagon is preparing for what they're calling resistance, getting so much resistance from behind. Better stop, children. What's that sound? Everybody, look what's going down. The Democrat Party, and they are completely out of the closet as a pro-crime party. You don't find a lot of those in most countries, in civilized countries. The third world countries, you find that here and there. And the Democrat Party, they're fighting for more crime. They're fighting against, and it's an insurrection. They're fighting against the established government. And their Underground Railroad is bringing in illegal alien gang members to ride roughshod over cities across America. And then they tell you, oh, no, things aren't so bad here. Come on, crime is down 24%. Well, it reminds me of old Marion Barry when Mayor for Life, Marion Barry, was mayor of our nation's capital. I voted for him repeatedly. Several occasions I had the opportunity to vote for Marion Barry, and I did, knowing that he would set back any notion of statehood by generations by the mere fact that he was elected again as mayor for life, which is another third world label that was appropriately applied to Marion Barry, the crackhead who smoked crack. Who did he smoke crack with? With Hunter Biden. That's who. He smoked crack with Hunter Biden, and Hunter Biden smoked crack with Marion Barry. The Democrat Party shouldn't really be allowed to have leadership positions, don't you think? They're not really a legitimate, a good political party. Got the mayor of Baltimore. He's like, he doesn't read the papers, and he doesn't pay any attention to what they're saying about what's going on in his city. And he wears a T-shirt, and he doesn't shave, and he looks like he should be living under a bridge with a 12-pack of Schaefer's beer. Schaefer's. Do you still get Schaefer's, Michael? Do you get the Schaefer's? Good price on a 12-pack. Nice value for the dollar there on Schaefer's beer. But the Baltimore mayor, got a bit of him today. And in Washington, D.C., they keep telling us, oh, no, things are so much better now. We're only going to have 170 homicides in D.C. this year. And last year, we had more. So this is their measure of success. Again, the homicide rate over the course of 5 years, 2019 to 2024, homicide rate in Washington, D.C., 41 41 homicides per 100,000 people. In London, it's 1.1 homicides per 100,000 people. I don't think we're doing as well as London. And Democrats, the Democrat response to that is, well, we need to ban guns. That's the usual communist response. Oh, yeah, speaking of which, got an update on Mamdani in the communist jihadi that the Democrats voted for in their primary elections for mayor of New York City. He's back at it again. He's got a lot of crazy things to say. Got an update on him. And he's leading in the polls by almost 20 points. I think he's up by 19 points. When's the last time you saw a poll where anybody was up by 19 points? Doesn't happen. It's always like 0.6 points, 1.2 percentage points. But he's up by 19 points. He's the commie jihadi. If you're a billionaire living in New York, leave now. If you're a millionaire living in New York, leave now. If you're anything but a gun-toting crack dealer belonging to the Sinaloa cartel, then leave now. Speaking of which, Mexico handed over a bunch of cartel leaders to the United States government for prosecution because they want nothing to do with them. So they handed them over to us. They're so dangerous that even the Mexican government just wants to pawn them off on us. Amazing. In the meantime, in Washington, where we've had a number of significant crime events lately, our Doge friend being beaten to a pulp by a gang of miscreant children, minors, teenagers, some of them probably the size of Michael Brown. Remember Michael Brown? Hands up, don't shoot, and all that good stuff. He 6'5", 295 pounds, 18 years old. Remember that? And he was the victim, and the police officer was the bad guy, according to the Democrats, because they're not on the side of the good guys. They're on the side of the bad guys. They're on the side of crime. The criminals are the heroes, and the cops are the villains in the Democrat Party's worldview. They're amazing people, not in a good way. Not it's not like Muhammad Ali or the Rolling Stones. They're not amazing that way. They're almost impossible to believe amazing. Now, the good people at the Federalist in Washington, D.C., they're right here in our nation's capital. And the Federalist, a great journalistic organization and more. The Federalist has a headline today, and it should be noticed because it's part of what we deal with every day. And the headline is, drunk, belligerent vagrants, plural, blockade the Federalist's office as leftist journalists insist D.C. is America's purest city. It's pure in the same way that, 99% pure cocaine is pure. It's, the pure cocaine, Michael, is the pure cocaine better than the less pure cocaine? I'm only messing with him. He's not actually a cocaine addict. But it's the purest. They say it's America's purest city. Pure what? You don't want to know. But the good people at the Federalist, the left-wing journalists and their Democrat friends, have been shrieking since Monday about how gloriously safe Washington, D.C. is, and how, as one particularly low IQ White House correspondent stated, there is a non-existent crime crisis. That's what the White House correspondent, a non-existent crime crisis. Sadly, she was then shot to death leaving the White House. Very sad, and dragged up Pennsylvania Avenue after a chain was tied to her ankles. It was horrible. Non-existent crime crisis in the nation's capital. Homelessness, not a problem, they say. Homicide? What's homicide? They'll interject, despite the city having clocked its 100th homicide this year on Monday. I talked to you about that. We talked about it yesterday, and we passed 100. We're a city of 700,000 people-ish, and that's a lot of homicides. Our homicide rate is higher than Baghdad's. And you talk to a liberal, and I predicted this, actually. I predicted this when we saw these stats initially. I said Democrats will say, yeah, well, you can't trust the statistics in Baghdad. And the liberal on my TV show last night on Newsmax said exactly that. Well, you can't rely on the statistics out of Baghdad. When it comes to murder's the most reported crime of all, because somebody disappears and they don't come home and they're dead and all that stuff. And then you usually find the body because it's harder to dispose of than a bag of cocaine that you can drop in the entrance of the White House on camera and nobody ever finds it. But never mind that. So the The Democrats, they like to lie about everything. Now, the Federalist continues. The cowardice and shame of their voices are palpable. First, they know from their own life experience that they're lying. And second, because even if they've not experienced D.C.'s crime in a while, it just means they have reached a level of pseudo-immunity unavailable to the countless normal people who have to deal with D.C.'s lawlessness on a daily basis. And I'll tell you what, I was at Newsmax yesterday doing our excellent TV show, which is on at 10 p.m. Eastern Time, Monday through Friday, and meeting people while talking to people and meeting with people there yesterday. And there are young women and on the show and off the show, producers and so on. And a young woman said she lives in Northeast D.C. by this market. There's a market up there that's very popular. And she said she went there yesterday, no, night before last, because she said yesterday, and it was yesterday when she said it. So it was day before yesterday. She went to this market, and she said, and I was kind of amazed to see that the crazy, screaming, mentally ill homeless people that are always blocking your entry and your exit were not there. They were not there. The crazy homeless people who are mentally ill, and that's why they're homeless. And our solution for that is to throw them on the street and let them fend for themselves like we're India, like we're New Delhi, or even Old Delhi, where the meat is not as fresh. The Old Delhi versus the New Delhi. And I've been to Delhi and New Delhi and the homeless crisis there, you could call it that for sure, with thousands of people out on the streets fending for themselves. And it's horrible for an American to see. But now the Democrats, because they're the left, they're the third world. The left always comes with a bag full of third world, and they let it loose wherever they go. And honestly, parts of D.C., and it's not quite New Delhi, but where the numbers are enormous, and all the construction workers live outside at the construction sites. But never mind that for now. D.C., we have a major homeless issue. You drive down Rock Creek Parkway by the Georgetown waterfront. There are tent cities under bridges, and every place there's a patch of grass. There are, nice tents, because liberals see the homeless people. They say, oh, I think I'll go to Dick's and buy these people a tent and bring them a tent. And then some of them are pretty nice tents. But the reality is that the mentally ill, drug-addicted people are still living outside under bridges on public lawns and public spaces. And they don't enhance the beauty of the city. Or it's a beautiful city, and it ought to be the best place in the country to live, and the best country in the world. So it should be an absolutely incredible place to live. Now, we have taxation without representation. I know that because that's what it says across the bottom of my license plates. I'd probably know it anyway, but it's what it says across the bottom of our license, because they're whining, even in silence. When their car's in the garage and nobody's around, their car is still whining. But here's the fix for that. I'm fine with a federal district not having senators and a member of the House of Representatives, but we shouldn't have taxation. There should be no federal taxes when you live in Washington, D.C., and that would turn us into Monaco overnight. We'd be the most amazing place anywhere. But never mind that. The homelessness, and wherever you go, we've got, and it's crazy, we have homeless people that even in Georgetown, where, the rich folks live in their multi-million-dollar mansions and all that, you got some homeless people, not as many as you used to see, out on the sidewalk in storefronts, and they have signs that say, Venmo me money. They tell you, they give instructions on their plaques, their placards, as to how to Venmo them money, which means they have iPhones, bank accounts, ATM cards, because homeless in America is different than it is in New Delhi. I'll tell you that much. But the Democrats and the media, but I repeat myself, they're yelling at us that crime is down. Yeah, down from like Burkina Faso levels, but still way above Baghdad levels. And they say, isn't this great? Again, 41 homicides per 100,000 in Washington, D.C., 15 homicides per 100,000 people in Baghdad, Iraq. The Democrats. And how many people are we going to have murdered in Washington, D.C., 66 square miles? It's a postage stamp of a city. It's a small city, and way under 1 million people. How many? We're going to have more people murdered than we had Americans killed in Afghanistan over the course of years. And Democrats shrug, and they say, yeah, well, whatever. It's not as bad as last year. And this is the leadership that the Democratic Party shows. We are at 888-630-9625. Also, they cooked the books on the crime stats. I talked about it yesterday. There's more on that today. The Democrats, running the police department. Hey, let's lie about the crime stats. Update on Mondani, Harvard University, and DEI. We've got George Washington University. They hate the Jews. And we're at 888-630-9625. And I've got stuff for the D.C. police chief. She was the chief equity officer, and now she's the police chief because genitals and melanin, how the Democrats promote people. Amazing stuff. And the homicide rate in D.C., which the Democrats tell us is no big deal. How does it compare to the rest of the country? Coming up. Right now, let's go to the telephones, Michael. Let's go to Danielle calling from Yukon, Oklahoma. Danielle, you're on the Chris Plante Show.
Hi, Chris. How are you?
I thought it was you. Amazing. You got out of here altogether, didn't you?
Yes, I did. And I miss you guys. I miss my family. I miss my friends. I don't miss the chaos.
Wow.
The pace of life is much slower here. I like that.
Yeah, nice.
Well, I want to tell you a quick story.
Uh-huh.
Back in 2007, my dad was a dean of students at one of the charter schools in D.C., and my husband would park his car at the school, so my dad would keep an eye on it, and he would walk to the Deanwood station. And one afternoon, I get a phone call from my dad, and he said, I don't want you to panic, which, of course, he wanted to panic at that point.
Right.
He said, but your husband's okay. He said 2 teens jumped him on the way from the train station to the school. These 2 punks came up behind my husband, sucker punched him, cutting open his face above his eye. It required the surgical glue to close it up.
Mm-hmm.
So as my husband's walking into my dad's school, all of my dad's students, they know who my husband is. They're running to get my dad, and my husband's just covered in blood. And what makes me so angry about that whole situation is there were people on the street when this happened. No one called the police. They were all afraid that these kids were going to come after them later. One older gentleman said, I saw what you did. And then my husband, after he turned to face them, because he was working at the Pentagon at the time, rebuilding some of the communications.
Running out of time on you. Running out of time.
Okay.
Actually, now you hang in there for a minute.
What President Trump said about crime numbers in D.C. is flatly wrong. If you look at the 25 most dangerous cities in the United States, D.C. doesn't appear on that list. And, there are allegations that D.C. police have been playing games with crime statistics, but you can't hide murders. And murder is down dramatically from just a couple of years ago.
Murder's down dramatically from just a couple of years ago. They're very happy to be able to cite that statistic. Never mind the reality of it. The Newsweek magazine reporting there were 187 homicides last year, in 2024, down from 274 homicides in 2023. And that's like, hey, isn't this great? We're only going to have 187 homicides this year in Washington, D.C., 700,000 people. Again, this is kind of an important. I'm coming back to you, Danielle. This is pretty amazing stuff. The Democrats, they rioted from coast to coast when a career criminal drug addict named George Floyd died of cardiac failure while resisting arrest once again after committing another felony. And they rioted from coast to coast. Now, if a 21-year-old congressional intern and squeaky clean college student from the University of Massachusetts named Eric Tarpanian-Yakam, if that 21-year-old is gunned down in Washington, D.C., Republicans aren't rioting and burning police stations in Portland, Oregon, and attacking courthouses and overturning police cars and setting them on fire. The Democrats do that quite constantly. And it's the Democrats doing the shooting in about 98.6% of the circumstances as well. Not a lot of Republicans out there gunning down college students that are congressional interns, but they don't care about that at all. Now, keep in mind, because this kind of matters, the homicide rates in the United States of America, they're it's about 5.9%, or 5.9 homicides per 100,000 people. So that's not a percentage, but that's 5.9 per 100,000 people in the United States of America. That's the nationwide number. In Washington, D.C., it's 41 homicides per 100,000. And the Democrats are like, hey, what's to worry about? Crime's down. Because last year we killed 287 people, and this year we're only going to kill 170. Well, again, we crossed the threshold of 100 homicides day before yesterday when another man was gunned down at 7th and M Streets Northwest around the time that I was at, it wasn't 7th, it was 12th and M Streets, and I was at 14th and M about an hour before the shoot-em-up happened there, the Democrat Party. Now, let's get back to Danielle. And then they shout at you and say, oh, this isn't bad. It's not even the top 25. Well, that's good. Stay away from the top 24 then, because the homicide rates, and also then they change the terms and they say crime instead of homicides. And because they're weasels, they're always weasels. Memphis, Tennessee, the number one crime city in America, according to Newsweek magazine at least. All right, now let's go back to Danielle calling in, and our old friend Danielle, who used to live here in the Washington area, now calling from Yukon, Oklahoma, where people are nice and people are polite. And Danielle, I'm guessing they're not shooting a lot of people in Yukon, Oklahoma.
No, it's pretty quiet. The only shooting that goes on around here are fireworks, a couple times a year.
And everybody owns guns.
I don't. Yes, there's lots and lots of gun owners.
Uh-huh.
Today's my younger children's first day back to school, so I have some quiet time today.
Uh-huh.
Usually that's with 9 kids, that doesn't happen very often.
9 kids. How about that? And Danielle's an old friend of the show from the very beginning, and I'm really happy to hear your voice. Now, you're 9 kids, and you moved to Yukon, Oklahoma, and you were just describing your father, who was, what was he at the school?
My dad was a dean of students.
Dean of students.
The attack happened
on your husband.
My husband.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so your husband was getting off Deanwood, that's in northeast Washington, D.C., the metro stop, close to the Maryland border with D.C., and he was attacked by 2 criminals who bashed him in the head and bleeding and then he's arriving at school, and then I rudely interrupted you.
Commercial race is fine. He briefly thought about fighting back, and he did manage to kick one of the kids that attacked him. He had on steel-toed boots, and anybody who's worn those boots know that those things are heavy. One of the other boys said, man, forget this, just shoot him. So at that point, my husband stopped fighting. They took his wallet, they took his phone, and he made his way to my dad's school. The police were brought to the school.
Mm-hmm.
My husband filed a report. They ended up throwing his items in a trash can at the train station, and one of the employees there got my husband's things out of the trash. But the fact that this happened in broad daylight, right outside of a school, most people aren't going to want to be a target after they just saw someone assaulted. Let me see, 2017, right after I moved here, 2018, the young man who lived right next door to my dad, his son was gunned down at the park that I grew up in Glen Burnie. Mm-hmm. Later that year, on Halloween, in the court across from my dad, a young father was gunned down in front of his toddlers. The dad was taking his kids trick-or-treating. Glen Burnie was a safe area when I was growing up. In my neighborhood in particular, nobody worried about being gunned down at a park or going trick-or-treating, or hearing gunshots all over the place. But the violence from D.C. and Baltimore slowly infected that area. And I've been talking to my dad for years. I'm like, please move out of there. He said, I'm not moving. They're not going to drive me out of here. And a lot of the older people who live in that area have the same feeling. I had my house for 4 years. I'm not moving. But the younger people feel desperate because not everyone can pack up and move.
Yeah.
And, when you lower the penalty for, let's say, assaulting someone where it used to maybe a higher misdemeanor to a lower misdemeanor, oh, they're only kids. Let's
Right.
just get them some therapy. They'll be fine. No, some people are just evil.
Well, and we know that
the sooner they understand that, the safer people will be.
The sooner they understand that, the safer and the better our cities will be, the more livable our cities will be. But you've got to have, the left says you don't need parents, right? We've got the state to raise your children like it's Albania under the communist dictator Enver Hoxha. And they're just not on the side of civilization. We had a 3-year-old girl gunned down in Washington, D.C. last month named Honesty Cheadle. Honesty Cheadle was shot and killed in July of last year, of this year, last month. And that's not considered to be a big deal. But again, the Democrats rioted for George Floyd because, every cop is a criminal and all the sinners saints. And the Democrat Party is the party of crime, and they're soft on crime, but they're hard on the police. They're anti-civilizational. The Democrat Party has left the reservation, and that's not a Native American reference. They are bad news for civilization. The Democrat, because they're the left, and they bring with them the sensibilities of the third world, and they're racist about absolutely everything with DEI and everything else. But I got to tell you, and this, look, Danielle, I was held up many years ago in Washington, D.C. at gunpoint by 2 fine young gentlemen, and in front of my apartment building in Adams Morgan, and one of them had a little, like a 25 or 22 caliber silver semi-automatic pistol, and I actually said hi to them, walked by them, and jumped me from behind, pressed the gun against my chin from behind, and they were arguing over, give it to me, I'll bust a cap in him, right? And there was a bit of a tussle and this and that, and a knife and back and forth. And nobody's ever caught, of course, because they look like every other criminal in Washington, D.C., and it's hard for the police to say, is it that guy? And the crime. And then, of course, you understand, Danielle, you just made reference to it. Then they're arrested, and they downgrade the charges, and you get these Democrats, like the current so-called prosecutor in Washington, who drops like 65% of gun crimes and doesn't prosecute. And then you know what happens? They go back on the street, say, I can do this, and there are no consequences. So you get more and more and more of it. And then they tell you, they have the mendacity and the audacity to tell you, well, it's not as bad as it was in 2023. And we're supposed to say, oh, that's great. Hey, it's not as bad as it was when we had 287 homicides in 365 days in a 66 square mile city. And you got 950 carjackings, 66 square miles. How many carjackings is that per square mile in a year? How many murders is that per square mile in a year? And I just did real quick. It's like 4 homicides per square mile every year. And the Democrats are like, what do you complain? This is great. Isn't this great? It's amazing. What the hell?
You know what, Chris?
Yeah.
Polish crap is still crap. And I'm so glad that you are still here. I'm glad that my husband's still here. My heart breaks anytime I hear these cases of especially children who haven't had a chance to live any of their lives.
Right.
And it is scary. And I really hope that with Trump being in office.
Yep. Losing you there. I blame the NSA. I think the NSA has intervened again. But you're right, Danielle, the kids and so many of them. Did we just lose Danielle? Oh, you just got her back. There you are. Now you're back.
Are you still there? Okay. Well, Chris, I'm going to go ahead and get on.
Hey, there you go. This is complicated, isn't it? Those telephones. Very, very complicated. Amazing stuff. Thank you, Danielle. Great to hear your voice. And I tell you, people want to talk about this, too. And I've got audio that I want to share with you that is pretty amazing stuff. We also have an update on the Sydney Sweeney American Eagle blue jeans ad that so offended the Democrats. They, I don't know what's wrong with these people, but they probably shouldn't be allowed to fly or own firearms, and maybe more restrictions on them. Thanks, Danielle. Let's go to another call. Let's go to Steve calling from Glendale, Maryland. Stephen, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Good morning, Chris. Thanks
Steve.
for taking my call.
You bet.
I love your show, and I love your Newsmax show too.
Thank you.
I think you should maybe run for the D.C. City Council also.
Oh, thanks.
The reason for my call is I was in New Orleans earlier this year at the Mardi Gras, and the Super Bowl was there as well. And the National Guard was there on every corner. I've been to 10 Mardi Gras in my life, and I've never felt more safe. You know, the National Guard were interacting with folks and talking to people. It was just a feeling of feeling good. All my lefty friends seem to think just because the National Guard's here, we have martial law now. You know, never have I heard once the president mention martial law.
Well, and none of them have functional memories. They seem to all have early onset stupid, because Joe Biden deployed the National Guard in Washington, D.C. in January of 2021 when he was inaugurated, and they occupied Washington, D.C. for 4 months. And they finally left at the end of May of 2021. And the Democrats endorsed that entirely because they saw their first riot in the history of the country, and it was January 6th. And so they were happy to declare martial law and to clamp down for months on end in Washington, D.C., in our nation's capital, because Ashley Babbitt had been shot and killed by a racist cop. And the Democrats applauded that cop and gave him awards and medals, and they had a parade for him practically. It was quite amazing. But you're right, the National Guard, and then, of course, I mentioned this yesterday, too, Steve, that the National Guard troops who were put up in a parking garage, a concrete parking garage, they ordered pizzas from a local pizza place. When their pizzas got there, Democrats had smashed up glass shards and sprinkled them into their pizzas because they were National Guard. And the Democrats, of course, had rioted all over D.C. and looted and attacked the White House and set fire to the Church of the Presidents. And there was no one charged, no one, not a single person charged in the 3-day siege of the White House, the torching of the Church of the President's 1814 church, I believe. And you're right, Steve. Now
they just make the laws like they like them. 14 homicides a week. You know, I'm a statistic guy, baseball guy. You crank those numbers in a number of different ways. But 100 by the end of July is 14 homicides a week. You got a hell of a lot better chance of hitting the mega million. I can guarantee you that.
Yeah.
If you're living in D.C.
That's it. I'm going to buy a lottery ticket now. That's pretty good. I think that. It makes it sound pretty good. You're right.
I'm a native Washingtonian, and a lot of my family worked in the police and fire department over the years. And, you know, yesterday I heard that fireman talking about those areas that nobody likes in Southeast and Anacostia and where you used to live, even where you got robbed.
Yeah.
My brother and father both have been robbed at gunpoint over the years, not recently.
Uh-huh.
Because they got the heck out of D.C. I'm still in the D.C. area. In fact, I'm going today. I go at least once a week into town.
Yeah.
And thank God President Trump is trying to do this for the Washington, D.C. people and the tourism industry. It's going to be good for business. It's going to be good for safety. And, you know, I take my hat off to President Trump. He just knocks the ball out of the park every day. It's like a new game every day. I don't know where the guy gets his energy at 79, but I want some of that.
That's a fact. That is such a straight-up fact. Steve, thank you for the call. Great call. Great stuff. And you're right, our firefighter yesterday was great. I got comments about him last night when I was at Newsmax, too. Great caller yesterday. Like you have been today, Steve. Great stuff. Yeah, President Trump is fighting crime. The Democrats are fighting him because they represent crime. They're the crime lobby. And as I've been saying for years, Steve, the problem is not our guns, it's your sons. Stop raising criminals. Stop shooting people. And we'll stop throwing them in prison. All right, I haven't been able to get to a lot of audio yet, but I'm going to get amazing audio of these people, the Democrats and the media, but I repeat myself, who are here to destroy the world. They are the left. They are the third world. They become death, destroyer of worlds. Little Vishnu Oppenheimer thing there. Let's go back to the telephones once again, Michael. Let's go to Nick calling from South Carolina. Nick, you're on the Chris Plante Show.
Hey, good morning, Chris.
Hey, Nick.
You know, this whole sanctuary city and sanctuary state madness, this is a form of secession. Call it secession light, if you will. But these people, they're saying your federal immigration laws mean nothing to us. Your federal drug laws mean nothing to us. And, Chris, not only are they profiting from this stuff financially because they tax all that pot, they're profiting politically because they now have more seats in Congress. It changes the Electoral College. I mean, they're profiting in all sorts of ways from this, and they're spitting on the supremacy clause.
Yes, they are. Well, they don't believe in the rule of law. They don't believe that we are entitled to have borders because if you're not entitled to secure your border, then you're not entitled to have a border. Without a border, you're not a nation. You're just a landmass, and that's what the left is here to do. The Democratic Party would have never done this, but the left is doing that, and they've taken over what they call the Democratic Party. But it's not a Democratic Party. The Democratic Party isn't. Right, Nick? I mean, friendly fire isn't, common courtesy isn't, and the Democratic Party isn't democratic.
Yeah, I mean, all of this stuff, they're not going so far as to say we're just going to secede from the nation because they know that they would lose all of their federal funding, and they can't survive without that. So this is we've seen all of this before in the 1850s, leading up to the 1860s. Right. And once again, it's Democrats who are driving the train.
That is a fact, Jack. That is 100% true. The term insurrection, the word insurrection in Merriam-Webster's dictionary, is defined as an act or instance of revolting against civil authority or an established government. The Democrat Party is involved in an ongoing insurrection against the United States of America. The Democratic Party they're not an American political party. And more Democrats, more murder. More Democrats, more crime. They're not on our side.